Welcome to ZAM Audiobooks. Today we are discussing the book titled 10 Positive Habits That Will Rewire Your Mindset. I want you to picture a scenario that is probably going to feel a little...
Oh, I think we all know this.
Right. So you finally get to the end of and you are just completely, utterly exhausted.
It's drained.
Exactly. You have answered countless messages. You've fired off, dozens of emails. You've sat through all the mandatory meetings. Basically, you were technically busy every single minute of the last nurse.
Yeah, redlining the whole day.
Right. And yet, as you finally close your laptop, you get this sinking, heavy in your stomach. Yeah. That feeling that the needle on your actual important work hasn't moved a single inch.
Which is the worst feeling.
It really is. It's like you moved 1,000 tiny pebbles, but the big boulder is sitting right where you did that morning.
It is a really profound, incredibly specific type of modern exhaustion.
Yeah, it really is.
You feel completely drained, but not from creating anything of it. You're drained from simply reacting.
Just playing defense.
Exactly. And the foundational concept we need to establish right away for this deep dive is that if you are feeling that, the problem is almost never a lack of effort.
Right. Because you're working hard.
You're working incredibly hard. And it's almost never a lack of willpower either. The issue is a fundamental lack of, because most people are living entirely reactively. They're just allowing whoever happens to message them first to dictate their attention.
Which makes sense because that's just how our tools are built now, right?
Oh, absolutely. But the good news is the human brain is highly adaptable. It doesn't have to stay stuck in that reactive.
So we can actually change the underlying wiring.
We can. Our daily habits are literally the instruction, like the underlying code that wires our neural pathway.
Well, I really want to unpack that code because the mission of our discussion is to break down the highly practical, biologically backed daily ritual that actually construct a hyper mindset.
A highly productive one, too.
Right. And I want to be clear, we are moving far, far away from those incredibly unrealistic...
Oh, you mean the 27-step one?
The ones that demand you wake up at 4 a.m, take an ice bath in your backyard, and meditate for an hour before the sun even...
Yeah, no one is actually doing that consistently.
Exactly. We are aiming for simple, compounding... But before we can actually start installing new habits, we have to understand the physical trying to upgrade.
The hardware, basically.
Right. We have to understand the brain itself and the chemicals driving them.
And to really grasp that machinery, we have to look closely at the reality of neuroplasticity.
That's a term that gets thrown around.
Constantly. It's everywhere in self-improvement spaces. But it's often used just as a loose, poetic metaphor for, changing your mind or thinking positively.
Just rewire your brain with good vibes.
Right, exactly. But neuroplasticity is not a metaphor. The brain physically, structurally, alters its architecture based on what you practice.
Structurally, like physical changes.
Yes. It is the brain's ability to reorganize it. It literally rewires its neural connection through growth and alters existing pathways in direct response to whatever you're doing.
So we are talking about actual physical mass changing inside the skull. Sort of like a muscle growing from lifting weights.
Literally, yes. I mean, think about the famous neuroscientific study involving people learning how to juggle.
Oh, the MRI one. I love this one.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Researchers didn't just ask the participants how they felt about juggling. They actually put them inside MRI scanners to measure the physical volume of their brain tissue.
Before they even touched a juggling ball, right?
Exactly. They scanned a group of adults who had never juggled before. Then they had them practice juggling every single day for 3 months.
Okay, so a solid block of practice.
And then they scanned them again. And the imaging showed measurable, undeniable increases in gray matter.
Wait, actual gray matter, the processing tissue?
Yes, the actual processing tissue of the brain, specifically in the mid-temporal area, which is the region associated with visual spatial processing.
That is...
The physical mass of that brain area literally swelled up to accommodate the new skill.
It built new infrastructure just for...
Exactly. But the most revealing part of the study actually happened next.
What did they do?
The participants were told to stop juggling entirely for another 3 months. Just drop it cold turkey.
Okay, so no practice.
None. And when they were scanned a third time, the specific enlarged brain areas had actually shrunk back down to their original size.
Oh, wow. So it's a biological use it or lose it situation happening in real time.
Exactly. If you don't keep firing that pathway, the brain just reabsorbs the resources.
Because it doesn't want to waste energy maintaining a road nobody drives on anymore.
Right. The brain is incredibly energy efficient, almost to a fault, really. It will not maintain infrastructure that isn't being actively used.
That makes total sense. And you see that with other skills, too.
Oh, everywhere. You see the exact same phenomenon with London taxi drivers.
Oh, I've heard about the test they have to.
Yeah, the knowledge. To get their license, they have to spend years memorizing the impossibly complex layout of the entire city.
It's something crazy, like 25,000.
Yeah, 25,000 streets and thousands of landmarks. It is a grueling cognitive test, and studies of these specific drivers showed that they developed significantly enlarged hippocampi compared to average citizens.
The hippocampus.
Yes, specifically the brain's center for spatial memory and navigation. The intense daily demands placed on their spatial memory literally force the brain to build a larger physical structure just to handle the load.
Okay, so if our daily habits are physically shaping our brain structure, we really need to look at the chemical current that's driving those.
Because the hardware needs fuel.
Right. If neuroplasticity is the engine, dopamine the fuel.
Exactly.
And right now, there is this massive internet trend where people try to do a strict dopamine detox.
Oh, yes. The monk mode trend.
Yeah. The pitch is that you lock your smartphone in a safe, you cut out all fun, no music, no junk food, zero stimulation for a whole week.
All to supposedly flush your system.
Right. So I guess the obvious question is, why not just do that? Why not do a hardcore dopamine cleanse to just instantly reset the brain?
I am so glad we're addressing this, because the popular understanding of dopamine is fundamentally flawed.
How so?
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It doesn't pool up in your brain like some kind of toxic sludge waiting to be flushed out by a juice flush.
So we don't have a buildup of bad.
No, not at all. It functions through two main firing patterns, phasic and tonic.
Tonic is like the baseline, right?
Right. Tonic dopamine is the baseline level, kind of like the idle of a car engine. It's that background hum of motivation that just keeps you going through the day.
Okay, and phasic.
Phasic dopamine is the spike. It's the sudden rev of the engine when you experience something rewarding or novel.
Like taking a bite of a really good chocolate cake.
Exactly. Or getting a new notification on your phone.
So if it's not a toxic buildup, what is the actual problem with all our screens and constant?
The issue isn't that we have too much dopamine sloshing around. The actual structural problem is the downregulation of D2 receptors in the brain's reward circuitry.
Wait, specifically in a certain area?
Yes, an area called the ventral striatum.
Okay, let's translate downregulation for a sec. If the ventral striatum is our reward center, what does it mean for those D2 receptors to downregulate?
Okay, imagine you go to an incredibly loud rock concert.
All right.
And you stand right next to the massive...
My ears are ringing already.
Right. So to protect your eardrums from the overwhelming noise, what do? You put in earplugs.
Yeah, to muffle the sound.
Well, that is exactly what your brain does when it's constantly flooded with high-level stimulation.
You mean things like endless scrolling on social media?
Endless scrolling, hyper-palatable processed foods, or constant video game wars.
Just hitting the button over.
Exactly. The brain tries to protect its delicate chemical balance, a state called homeostasis. And it does this by reducing the number of dopamine receptors available to receive the signal.
It essentially puts in chemical...
It completely turns down the volume. So now, normal, everyday things that should feel pretty good, like reading a physical book or having a quiet conversation with a friend, they just don't register as rewarding anymore.
Because they can't penetrate the earplugs. The signal is too quiet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you feel chronically unmotivated, you feel lethargic, and you're just constantly bored unless you're looking at a screen.
Wow, that makes total sense. So it's not about flushing out a bad substance at all. It's about healing the receptors so they can actually hear the dopamine, which makes me look at those extreme dopamine detoxes completely differently. If someone does a maximalist detox, like banning all music, avoiding eye contact, just sitting in a dark room, it sounds exactly like a crash diet.
That is the perfect analogy.
Because if you starve yourself of all calories for 5 days, the very moment you let your guard down, you're going to end up eating a whole pizza in 10 minutes.
Taking that crash diet analogy even a step further, the neurological mechanism of extreme restriction is actually far more insidious than people realize.
Really? How so?
Maximalist abstinence rules completely backfire because of a concept called incentive sensitization.
Incentive sensitization, what does that do?
When you violently suppress all reward-seeking behavior with arbitrary, rigid rules, you aren't resetting your brain at all. You are actually amplifying the psychological wanting system.
You're just making yourself obsess over it.
Exactly. You are sensitizing the brain to crave the reward even more desperate. You create the exact neurochemical conditions for a massive rebound binge the very second your restriction.
So locking your phone in a safe just makes you think about your...
Right. True mindset rewiring isn't about locking yourself in a closet. It is much more like physical therapy for your attention.
Small, targeted, instant, daily exercise.
Yes. Slowly rebuilding the muscle rather than shocking them.
Okay, so if extreme deprivation isn't the lever to heal those receptors, what actually works? How do we naturally...
The most evidence-backed way to protect and restore your dopamine receptors is actually sleep.
Just sleep? That sounds almost too mundane.
It does sound mundane, but the biological impact is profound. Sleep deprivation directly decreases D2 and D3 receptor binding in the human brain.
Directly.
Directly. When you don't get restorative sleep, the brain's glymphatic system fails.
The glymphatic system, what's that?
It's basically the brain's overnight janitorial crew. It's responsible for clearing out metabolic waste products like adenosine. That build up while you're awake.
Oh, so if you don't sleep, the trash just piles up.
Exactly. And that buildup directly impairs the receptor's ability to function the next day.
So the earplugs get pushed in even tighter.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
If you are chronically shorting your sleep, your reward circuitry is fundamentally compromised at a structural level. You simply cannot out-habit sleep deprivation.
No perfectly optimized morning routine is going to fix a broken baseline.
Not a chance.
Okay, so if sleep resets the baseline, then the moment we wake up, those dopamine receptors are at their absolute...
They are wide open.
Which means the very first input we give our brain in the morning isn't just a lifestyle choice. It is a critical chemical programming event.
It sets the entire trajectory for the day.
Right. If your baseline is set by sleep, how you boot up the system matters immensely. And I think we all know the trap of the reactive morning.
The dreaded phone grab.
Yes. You wake up, you roll over, and before your feet even touch the floor, you just grab the phone. You absorb 3 emails from your boss, terrifying news headline about the economy, and someone's perfectly curated vacation photos on social...
All within 90 seconds of opening your eyes.
Exactly. Instantly, your brain is just flooded with cortisol and cheap dopamine. You have effectively surrendered the entire trajectory of your day to other people.
And biologically speaking, that behavior triggers an immediate amygdala hijack.
The amygdala, that's the threat detector, right?
Yes. When you wake up and immediately feed it stress, comparison, and urgency, you are sending a massive biological signal to your nervous system.
A signal that says what?
That the world is chaotic, it's dangerous, and you are already behind. A morning without intention creates a mind without direction.
So you spend the rest of the day in a defensive crouch.
Exactly. Just trying to fend off incoming threats.
Okay, so the alternative to that chaos is what's called the 20-minute rule. And to be clear again, we aren't talking about a 2-hour meditation retreat on a mountaintop.
No, nobody has time for that.
We are talking about aggressively protecting just the very first 20 minutes of your day.
Because those 20 minutes set the neurological tone, the routine starts incredibly simply with hydration and breathing.
Hydration, just drinking water.
Yes, because after 8 hours of sleep, your body, and crucially your brain, which is about 73% water, is dehydrated.
And a dehydrated brain doesn't well.
It literally shrinks in volume and slows cognitive process. So drinking a large glass of water right away is step 1.
Combined with the breathing.
Right. A few deep conscious breaths to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. This signals to your body that you are choosing calm awareness before frantic action.
Okay, so you drink water, you breathe, and then you establish a single clear intention for the day.
Yes, not a laundry list of 5 anxious tasks. One single mental anchor.
Like what would an anchor be?
Maybe it's just focus. Maybe it's patience with your team during a big meeting. Or maybe it's just steady, quiet progress. You hold that single intention in your mind to guide your reactions for the next 24 hours.
And crucially, during those first 20 minutes, the phone stays in another room.
Absolutely. No social media, no inbox, no news.
You protect your attention. Because once you actually own your morning, you can start architecting your focus for the workday.
And here is where the landscape of high-level productivity has completely transformed lately.
Yeah, we aren't just writing bulleted to-do lists on a legal pad anymore. High performers are operating on an entirely different system now.
The major shift is moving away from manual task listing entirely and moving toward AI-assisted energy-matched planning.
Energy-matched planning. Explain how that works.
Well, Instead of staring at a blank calendar and agonizing over when to write a proposal or when to review spreadsheets, professionals are using software that analyzes their personal energy patterns.
So the software looks at your deadlines, your historical completion rates, and your energy.
Exactly. The software proposes a block schedule based on when you are actually at your best. And the human role shifts from being an exhausted scheduler to simply being an approver.
The concept of energy-matched work is really the gear here. I mean, trying to write a complex, creative document PM when my brain feels like absolute mush, it's pure torture compared to doing it at 9 a.m.
Because it is biologically counterproductive to ignore those energy rhythms, we all have chronotypes and ultradian rhythms.
Natural peaks and valleys of alertness.
Right. And the most sophisticated practitioners map their deep, demanding cognitive work specifically to their peak energy.
And then what do they do during the valleys?
They push the administrative tasks, email sorting, routine communication. All of that goes into their low-energy slump.
Which makes sense. You don't need peak brain power to sort through your inbox.
You don't. It usually takes about 2 weeks of carefully tracking your own energy curve to figure this out. Just noting when you feel sharpest and when you feel a dip.
But once you map that out...
Once you map it out, your adherence to your schedule skyrocket because you are finally swimming with the current of your biology instead of constantly fighting against it.
Okay, so protecting focus by matching work to energy is brilliant. But we also have to defend that focus from the tiny, constant distraction of the modern office.
The endless pings and messages.
Exactly. What does protecting focus via asynchronous windows actually look like in practice?
It involves implementing what's called the communication window.
The communication window, okay.
Basically, instead of treating platforms like Slack, Microsoft Teams, or your email inbox as a continuous ambient background process that you monitor all day long.
Which we all do. We just keep it open on the second monitor.
Right out of the corner of your eye. Instead of doing that, you schedule explicit boundaried windows for it.
Like specific times just for chatting?
Typically, this means setting 2 or 3 30-minute blocks a day dedicated entirely to communication. You dive in, reply to everything, and then outside of those blocks, the communication tools are completely closed.
Okay, wait, hold on. A 30-minute communication window sounds incredibly in a vacuum. But let's talk reality, friends.
Sure.
If my boss slacks me with a question and I don't reply for 2 hours, I'm going to look totally...
People worry about this all the time.
Yeah. How does this actually survive contact with modern corporate excellence?
It is a very real friction point, and it absolutely cannot be solved unilaterally. You can't just go silent without telling anyone.
Right. That would be...
It requires proactive expectation management and norm setting with your team.
So you have to communicate how you're communicating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It means having a brief professional conversation where you say, look, to ensure I get the deep analytical work done for our major project, I'm going to be heads down from 9 to 11 a.m.
So setting a clear boundary.
Right. And you add, I will check all messages at 11:15. If it is a true emergency, here's my cell number to call me.
Ah, the escalation path. Give them a way to reach you if the building is on fire.
Yes. And what you'll find is that almost nothing is a true emergency that can't wait 90 minutes. Nobody is going to call your cell phone unless it's critical.
That's very true.
You have to weigh the artificial comfort of constant availability against the profound, inescapable truth of knowledge work. That 2 hours of genuine, uninterrupted deep work inside a well-structured day will consistently outperform 8 hours of fragmented, highly reactive effort.
I believe that entirely. And the thing that fragments that effort the most is what's called microtask scatter, right?
So microtask scatter is a productivity killer.
Because these are the individually tiny tasks that feel completely harmless. Answering a quick 2-sentence message, confirming you'll attend a meeting, approving a small document.
Each one technically takes under 3 minutes.
Right. But collectively, these little microtasks burn between 90 minutes and 3 hours of every sinking day.
The lost time is bad enough, but the real cognitive danger is the context switching cost.
Context switching. Tell me about that.
The brain is not a computer processor that can run multiple complex applications simultaneously. Every single time you switch from deep, focused work to answer a quote-unquote quick message, your brain has to disengage from the complex neural network it was using.
It has to pack up all the files from the big project.
Exactly. Pack them up, put them away, and load up a completely different context to answer the message.
Even if it's just to say, sounds good, thanks.
Even then. And studies on interruption show that after a simple distraction, it can take the brain upwards of 23 minutes to fully reorient and get back to the original depth of flow.
23 minutes just to recover from a single ping. That is devastating.
It is, but by capturing all those random microtasks into a dedicated queue and batching them into your 30-minute communication windows, you completely eliminate that invisible context-switching tax.
You pay the tax once instead of 20 times a day?
Precisely.
Okay, so all of this, the morning routine, the energy matching, the communication windows, it all creates the space for focus.
It builds the container.
Right, but we all know that finally sitting down in that perfectly protected space doesn't mean the work itself will magically be easy.
Oh, definitely.
So what happens when the work inside that space gets incredibly difficult, frustrating, or just uncomfortable? That leads us straight into forging resilience, discomfort.
This is where we examine the deliberate habit of doing one hard thing daily.
Because it's about actively seeking to expand your discomfort threshold, right?
Okay.
And a hard thing doesn't mean you have to run a marathon before breakfast. It could be taking a 30-second cold shower.
Or initiating a difficult, awkward conversation with a colleague that you've been putting off.
Right. It could just be refusing to hit the snooze button on a really cold morning. But why does the actual intention behind choosing that discomfort matter so much?
Because the brain is a highly associative machine. If we connect this back to the neurobiology of survival, actively avoiding discomfort trains your brain to tightly associate ease with safety and effort with danger.
So if you always avoid hard things, effort feels like...
Yes. When you constantly design your life to avoid all friction, always taking the easiest route, never pushing your physical or mental limits, your mind becomes incredibly fragile.
It learns a default pattern of escape.
It learns, I cannot handle stress, I must escape immediately. But when you intentionally choose to face discomfort, when you willingly walk toward it instead of shrinking away, you physically expand your nervous system's tolerance threshold.
You're stretching the comfort zone.
You train your brain to stay steady, regulated, and calm when the environment gets demanding. You are building profound mental stability.
That maps perfectly onto the neuroscience of the growth mindset versus a fixed. It's not just a positive attitude, completely different biological reaction to stress.
It is entirely biological. Research using functional MRI shows these mindsets correspond to distinct neural patterns.
What does a fixed mindset look like on...
Well, when someone with a fixed mindset, someone who believes their intelligence and abilities are statically locked at birth, faces a difficult challenge or a failure, their brain triggers a defensive threat act.
The amygdala flares up.
Exactly. The amygdala flares up because the struggle is interpreted as a literal threat to their identity. I am failing, therefore I am a failure.
And what about the growth mindset?
Someone with a growth mindset who fundamentally believes abilities develop through friction and effort shows a completely different pattern. Their brain engages the prefrontal cortex, entering a state of exploratory process.
So they don't see it as a threat?
No, they treat difficulty not as evidence of their own inadequacy, but as the very signal that learning and adaptation are currently happening.
I always think about cognitive struggle like lifting weights.
That's a great comparison.
Because if you go to the gym, pick up a weight, and it's completely easy to lift, your muscles aren't going to change at all. There is zero stimulus.
Nothing is telling the body to adapt.
Right. It is the friction, the heavy resistance, the literal micro-tearing of the muscle fibers, the difficulty itself that is the biological mechanism triggering. If it is not hard, you aren't growing.
That is an excellent way to visualize how neuroplasticity actually functions. The struggle isn't a barrier to the mechanism. The struggle is the mechanism.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. But part of that necessary struggle is the sheer discipline of getting to the finish line. We really need to talk about the importance.
Oh, completion is critical.
Because if most of us look around our lives, we have this massive trail of half-read books, half-finished home projects, half-written reports. Why is the act of finishing something so critical for our mind?
Because starting a new project feels incredibly good.
Oh, I love starting things, buying the domain name, making the fresh folder.
Right. Starting gives you a rush of dopamine. It's novel, it's exciting, it's full of potential. There are no problems yet.
But finishing is the exact opposite.
Finishing is slow, it's repetitive. It requires you to iron out all the tedious, boring details. Finishing requires high discomfort tolerance.
And when we don't finish...
When you don't finish things, you fall victim to the Zeigarnik effect.
The Zeigarnik effect, what is that?
It's a psychological principle stating that people remember uncompleted tasks much better than completed ones. Unfinished projects literally take up active RAM in your brain.
They just sit there running in the background, draining the battery.
Exactly. They leave a cognitive weight hanging over. And worse, you slowly train your brain to accept unfinished things as normal.
Which quietly degrades your self-trust.
Yes, you stop believing your own promises.
So the strategy to fix this massive energy is moving away from the endless rolling to-do list that carries over day after day, and instead creating a strict.
A finish list is ruthless.
How does it work?
It contains a maximum of 3 items, and the non-negotiable rule is these 3 items must be closed out by the end. Just 3. You cannot add a 4th item halfway through the day because it sounds fun.
So you take the task, you break it down to its smallest executable action.
You remove all escape routes, like closing the extra 20 browser tabs you have open, and you simply stop negotiating with your own mind. You sit down and you do the work.
It seems like completion isn't even really about productivity at all. The real magic is that finishing what you start triggers a deep identity.
That is the core of it. When you close the loop and finally finish what you started, you provide your brain with a powerful dopamine hit tied directly to discipline, not just novelty.
You prove to yourself that you keep your word.
Exactly. With tangible, undeniable evidence. You prove that when you say you are going to do something, it gets done. Real confidence is never born from a string of easy achievements or empty positive affirmations.
It's born from the undeniable track record.
Yes.
Okay, so resilience helps you in finishing build, but we also have to monitor the fuel we are putting. We need to monitor what we are actually feeding our mind to ensure we're growing in the right direction.
Input.
Right. Let's look at the balance of input versus output. Specifically, the modern mandate to consume less.
We are living in an era of unprecedented, hyper-engineered consumption. I mean, from the moment we wake up, we endlessly scroll short-form videos, we watch streaming series, we read hot takes, we absorb an absolute fire hose of content.
And obviously, not all consumption is bad.
No, of course not. But passive consumption, when it becomes the dominant activity of our waking hours, it fundamentally numbs the brain.
It just overwhelms the stomach.
It floods your mind with input without ever giving it the necessary silence and space to actually process what it just consumed. It overstimulates the dopamine system, creates massive mental clutter, and almost always leads to a state of comparison and deep psychological.
And the antidote to that exhaustion isn't to become a Luddite on your smartphone. It's about finding them.
Finding a balance.
Right. It's about consciously replacing one block of passive consumption with one block of active.
That's a great rule.
So if you catch yourself scrolling for 30 minutes, you make a deal with yourself to spend the next creating something.
And creation doesn't have to mean painting a Renaissance map.
No. It could be writing one thoughtful paragraph in it, or physically organizing your work, sketching out a rough idea for a project, or even cooking a meal from.
Because the biological state of active is fundamentally different from passive. When you are in a passive state, your brain is just receiving signals.
Sitting on the couch, biologically.
Right. But when you create, you force your brain to actively organize thoughts, to solve micro-problems, and to express ideas outward. This engages the prefrontal cortex.
It stimulates neural growth.
Yes, and drives a sense of forward motion. It anchors your identity in your own tangible progress, rather than leaving you drowning in the highlight reel of someone else's.
I love that. And alongside the habit of creating, there's the habit of learning
just one thing.
Yeah, we aren't talking about committing to 3 hours of intensive academic study after a long day of work. We are talking about finding one single useful and crucially, applying it to your real life.
Deliberate daily learning ensures your mind remains plastic and continues evolving. It increases your mental flexibility, giving you a wider array of cognitive tools to handle life's inevitable challenges.
But as you noted, the linchpin is application.
Because knowledge without application is just trivia. You have to ask yourself, where in my current life can I immediately use this? That single question is what transforms abstract information into practical, lived growth.
Let's shift to gratitude now, and I have to be completely honest here.
Go for it.
For a long time, whenever I heard experts talk about gratitude journaling, cringe.
A lot of people do.
It just sounded so fluffy, like a quote you'd find embroidered on a decorative pillow at a suburban craft fair. It just didn't sound like a serious tool for high performers.
It is a very common reaction, especially because gratitude has been heavily commodified by the wellness.
Oh, totally.
But this is where the rigorous neuroscience is incredibly valid. Genuine gratitude journaling is highly structural. It is absolutely not about toxic positivity or pretending your life is perfect or ignoring real hardship.
So what is it doing biologically?
It is a targeted mental discipline that actively trains the brain's reticular activating system to see reality clearly instead of constantly scanning the horizon for threats and negatives.
Okay, take me under the hood. What is actually happening when someone constantly practices structured gratitude?
Deliberate gratitude practices physically remodel the brain through a mechanism called Hebbian plasticity.
Hebbian plasticity.
The famous summary of this principle is neurons that fire together wire together.
I've heard that phrase.
Think of it like walking through a dense forest. The first time you walk a path, you have to push branches out of the way. It's difficult.
Right.
But if you walk that exact same path every single day, eventually you carve out a smooth, clear trail.
It becomes the path of least resistance.
Exactly. Studies using functional MRI show that a consistent gratitude practice carves a clear neural trail, increasing both activity and connectivity within a specific network.
Which network?
It involves the medial prefrontal cortex, which handles complex decision-making and perspective, and the anterior cingulate cortex, which manages emotional regulation and empathy.
So it is actively strengthening the specific pathways that allow for emotional stability.
Yes, and simultaneously, it weakens the pathway. It reduces amygdala reactivity to perceived threats.
That is incredible.
And on a psychophysiological level, gratitude downregulates the HPA axis,
The HPA axis.
the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It's the complex system that controls your body's stress response and releases cortisol.
So by downregulating it, you physically lower the amount of stress hormone in your blood.
Exactly. Furthermore, gratitude increases vagal tone.
The vagus nerve.
Right. The vagus nerve is essentially the brake pedal for your nervous system. High vagal tone indicates your nervous system has a robust ability to quickly recover from a stressful event and return to a state of calm.
So gratitude is essentially strength for your biological.
It is a measurable biological intervention. It is not just a nice thought.
That completely changes how I view it. And a highly actionable way to get these benefits every day without having is a journaling technique called the 3 clarity questions.
Those are fantastic.
I love these because they are aggressive in getting straight to the point. The first question is, what am I avoiding?
That question is powerful because avoidance is the clearest indicator of fear, and it usually points directly to...
Right, because whatever you're running from is...
Exactly. When you force yourself to name what you are avoiding, a conversation, a project, a financial reality, you immediately drag it out of the shadows.
You shine a light on it.
Naming it weakens its psychological power over you, and it highlights exactly where your most vital growth opportunities currently lie.
Okay, the second question is, what do I want right now?
Desire provides necessary direction. We often get so caught up in what we think we should be doing or what other people expect of us that we lose our internal compass.
We just drift along with other people's goals.
Giving your own desire shape and clarity cuts through all that mental chaos. It helps you identify the next logical step to take.
And the third question, what do I need to let go?
Because holding on to old fears, outdated narratives about who you are, or anger over past mistakes, it consumes massive amounts of cognitive bandwidth.
It's like leaving huge programs running in the background of your brain.
Exactly. Letting go is not about magically forgetting the past. It is about making a conscious decision to stop funding those old stories with your current energy.
You are freeing up that cognitive RAM so you can actually apply it to moving forward.
Precisely.
So we have the habits mapped out. We understand the biology of neuroplasticity and dopamine. We have the intentional morning routines, the AI-assisted focus blocks, the daily discomfort, the mandate to finish, the balance of creation, and the neural rewiring of gratitude.
It's a comprehensive system.
It is. But here is the ultimate practical question. How do we make sure this doesn't all completely fall apart by next day?
The consistency problem.
Right. Because we've all started a new routine on Monday with maximum enthusiasm, only to crash and burn a few days later. How do we build unbreakable systems of consistency and actually protect our energy over the long haul?
This is where we have to pivot and look very closely at physiological baselines.
Physiology again.
Always. Because very often what you interpret as a lack of discipline or a failure of mindset or a bad habit isn't a psychological problem at all.
What is it then?
It is a physical energy. It is
Ugh.
entirely physiological.
Meaning, no matter how good your time blockings cannot out-habit a
Precisely. Before you blame your mindset or beat yourself up for being lazy, you need to check your biologicals.
What should people be looking?
For example, we look at AM cortisol levels, which tracks the load on that HPA axis we discussed. If your cortisol is chronically elevated from prolonged stress, you will experience severe morning fatigue.
You just won't be able to get out of it.
You'll have absolutely zero motivation, regardless of how many inspirational audiobooks. We also look at free T4 and TSH to rule out thyroid dysregulation.
Right, because a sluggish thyroid perfectly mimics the symptom of cognitive fog, depression, and burnout.
Exactly.
I've also seen recommendations to check vitamin D status and ferritin. The ferritin one is particularly interesting.
It is incredibly common and widely misunderstood. Ferritin is the protein that stores iron in your...
And iron is what carries oxygen, right?
Iron's primary job is to help carry oxygen in your blood to your tissue, including your brain. If your ferritin levels are low, your brain is quite literally not getting optimal oxygen delivery on a microcellular level.
That sounds terrible. What does that actually feel like?
The physical result is that your cognitive processing slows down. You feel exhausted, your memory gets hazy, and you lack all drive.
It feels exactly like severe psychological.
But it is a physiological oxygen deficit, and it can occur long before actual clinical anemia shows up on a standard blood test. If your biology is depleted in this way, your high-performance habits will inevitably collapse.
That is such a crucial safety check to run before you lack willpower.
It really is.
But assuming our blood work is stellar and our biology is solid, how do we maintain the daily habits themselves? Because perfectionism is the greatest trap in self-improvement.
It absolutely is.
If we demand 100% perfection from ourselves, the very first day we stumble, and we definitely stumble, just throw our hands up and quit entirely.
The ultimate safety net against that kind of toxic perfectionism is a concept we call the minimum version of a habit.
I really like this framework. It's the absolute simplest, most stripped-down expression of the habit that you can complete even on your absolute worst, most exhausting day.
That is exactly the design. If your target habit is an hour of vigorous exercise, the minimum version is doing exactly 1 minute of movement.
Like maybe 10 push-ups before you get in the shower?
Exactly. If your goal is daily journaling, the minimum version is writing one single sentence. If it's reading a book a week, the minimum version is reading one single page before your head hits the pillow.
Just one page takes 30 seconds.
By drastically lowering the entry point, you completely remove psychological resistance and the excuse of, I don't have time.
Because everyone has this.
Right. But more importantly, doing the minimum version keeps the habit and the specific identity associated with being someone who does that habit alive in your brain's neural pathways.
It keeps the internal streak going in your mind. You didn't fail, you just did the minimum.
Exactly. And that ties directly into the 2-day rule.
The 2-day rule, how does that one work?
It's beautifully simple and nearly foolproof. You are allowed to miss 1 day of a habit, but you must never, under any circumstances, miss 2 days in a row.
Never 2 days.
Missing 1 day is just the reality of life happening. You get the flu, your flight is delayed, there's a family emergency, the streak is broken, but the habit is...
Because you bounce back the next day.
Exactly. But missing 2 days in a row, that is the beginning of a completely new behavioral pattern.
It's a new, less disciplined identity forming in real time.
Right. The 2-day rule gives you grace for real life, but it draws a hard, non-negotiable line against behavioral drift.
It protects your long-term progress without demanding an impossible standard of perfection. And finally, to make sure all these daily micro actions are actually accumulating into something meaningful, we have the monthly review.
Yes, the monthly review is crucial. Daily and weekly habits are excellent for keeping you in control of your immediate environment.
They keep the engine running.
But a monthly review is what keeps you aligned with your larger life trajectory. It is designed to prevent long-term, slow-motion drift.
How long does it take?
It only requires about 45 to 90 minutes once a month. You sit down in a quiet space and ask yourself very objective questions.
Like what? What are we looking for?
You ask, what actually moved forward this? What did I continually avoid? And what is the underlying fear driving that avoidance?
Bringing those clarity questions to a larger scale.
Exactly. Then you ask, what recurring tasks should I completely stop doing, postpone to next quarter, or just delegate to someone? And finally, what is the single defining focus for the next 30 days.
It's exactly like checking the GPS on a long cross-country road trip. Your daily habits are the engine running, keeping the car moving down the highway.
Right.
But if you never pull over, step back, and check the map, which review, you might be driving 80 miles an hour efficiently in the complete.
That's a perfect analogy. The review ensures that all this incredible momentum is actually driving you toward the right dip.
So when we step all the way back and synthesize every single thing we've today, the structural realities of neuroplasticity, the delicate balance of the dopamine reward pathway, the tactical execution of focus windows.
The biological necessity of resilience and the systems of consistency.
Right, all of it. What is the unified core message here?
The core message is this. Genuine transformation is never a single, dramatic, cinematic moment.
It's not a montage in a movie.
No, it does not happen overnight in a slash of inspiration. You build a structurally better brain and consequently a better life by choosing slightly better habits one day at a time.
Just one day.
It is the quiet, unremarkable, highly consistent choices that physically rewrite your neural pathways over.
So what does this all mean for you, listener? I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your...
It's an important question to ask yourself.
If every single one of your daily habits is essentially a tiny compounding vote for the exact person you're slowly becoming, I want you to take a hard, completely honest look at your last based purely on what you did, what you avoided, and what you could. Who did you?
That is the question.
Thank you for listening to ZAM Audio. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to follow for more insightful audiobook conversations.